You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And it's coming to the end of summer. Summer is winding down, and with it, the summer box office is pretty much over. There are no real big tentpole movies to look forward to. And if you've been with Later with Mo Kelly for more than a year, we talked last year, talking about 2023, how that the movie theater industry, talking about movie houses, they would need some really big movies that are going to stay in theaters for a prolonged period of time to make it financially worthwhile for theaters. It's one thing to have a great summer season, but you don't have a great fall or winter or even spring season. And also, if you just have these big blockbusters, well, you have to make sure that they're going to stay in theaters long enough so people can actually see them during the week. Because now I know that if a movie comes out, it's not going to be in theaters for more than 30, 35 days. And if I'm not in a rush to see it, I can wait. I'll wait for it to show up on streaming, digital download. And that has hurt the industry as well. I know that I'm not the only one. But think of it this way. For all that we remember about last year's supposed great summer box office season, it was the year of Barbenheimer. Remember that? Barbie, Oppenheimer. They both did close to $1 billion. Obviously, Barbie did more than $1 billion. I think Oppenheimer got to maybe 900 million, something like that. But those were the two real big movies where people were saying like, hey, movies are back. We're back to going to the theater. And I said, no. That was an aberration. That was the exception, which has proven the rule. And now I have some figures to back it up. This particular movie season, this summer blockbuster season, and it's basically over, generated $3.34 billion this summer movie season. This year. Last year, with Barbie and Oppenheimer, $4.75 billion. And I said that was an aberration. Yes, it saved a lot of movie theaters, but you would not be able to sustain that. And now we've seen it's not sustained. In fact, they are down, $4.03 billion last year. Now, 2013 is $4.7 billion. So 10 plus years ago, before the pandemic, during the height of movie theaters, I would say popularity, was bringing in close to $5 billion. Now we're down to $3.3 billion. It is a sliding scale, and movie theaters are not going to be able to continue it at the rate that they're going. The only thing which can save them is if you have hit movies which stay in theaters for a longer amount of time. Let's drill down. For all the criticism of Disney, well, you know who the biggest winner of this year's summer movie season? Disney. Deadpool, Wolverine, more than $1 billion. Pixar's Inside Out 2, more than $1.5 billion. Say what you want about Disney, but they're still on top. And if you're curious, both Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine cost $200 million each to produce, but they have multipliers of 6 and 7 respectively. So yeah, you do that. You'll spend $200 million to make $1.6 billion. You'll spend $200 million to make $1.2 billion. Only Disney can say that. And if you look at the other movies that I guess were somewhat highly anticipated, they didn't perform. If with Ryan Reynolds, a star in his own right, didn't do anything. The Fall Guy, look, I really didn't want to see it, but I saw it when it came out on streaming, and I was very glad that I didn't see it in theaters. It was, it was meh.
I tried to warn you.
You did, but, it was fine to watch at home for basically free.
That wasn't exclusively on streaming?
No, that was in theaters. I think Mark saw it in theaters.
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
Right. And we all saw in theaters Furiosa. That movie seriously underperformed for various reasons. And if you look at the movies which weren't sequels, just about all of them did poorly or underperformed. Like, for example, Kevin Costner's Horizon, Fly Me to the Moon, M. Night Shyamalan's Trap. none of those movies did any real box office. But the sequels, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and just about all the obviously Inside Out, those movies did well. Deadpool Wolverine, that's a sequel. That did well. But the original movies did not. And for all the complaints that we hear about, oh my gosh, another superhero movie, another sequel. Well, I got news for you. It was only the sequels and superhero movies which performed and saved your favorite movie theater this summer. Those are just the facts. For all they say about, oh, I'm tired of superhero movies. Well, no, you're not. Because you're still going to them.
I don't think a lot of people understand what a huge gamble any movie is. And when they're throwing $100 million, $200 million at a movie, that's a big deal. That's, it's a huge, Ryan Reynolds had no idea that was going to pay off the way it did.
No, did not. But a lot of original movies, a lot of original concepts, non-sequels, historically don't do well. This summer, proof positive of that. I wanted to see The Bike Riders. Still haven't gotten around to see it yet. It failed financially.
It's on one of the streamers, and it's worth watching.
Okay.
It's on Peacock, yeah.
Okay, it's on Peacock.
So is the Kevin Costner Horizon movie, and I watched that over the weekend, and I'll probably talk about it Friday, but it's really too bad that didn't find an audience in theaters. But just to finish my thought, these sequels and remakes and things that people are familiar with are a safer bet for the studios when all that is being put out now is big budget tent poles and little teeny movies and not a whole lot in between.
Well, it's a safer bet because you don't have to start from square one. There's a reference point. When you say Furiosa, oh, okay, I already know that character. I know its connection to the Mad Max universe. Oh, Deadpool and Wolverine. Yes, I've seen Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2. I've seen all the X-Men movies. I'm familiar with Hugh Jackman. There's a reference point. You're not starting over. The Bike Riders, who's in that?
Tom Hardy.
No, but my point is, you don't have. You're starting at square one, and you have to spend more money to publicize that movie, and you have to buy into a movie which, on the surface, is not all that special.
And it's interesting because it has the ratings on Peacock, and it has a pretty good rating from Rotten Tomatoes. So I guess it just, like you said, didn't find an audience.
No, it found an audience. The issue is, and what this article really points out, is that, especially during the summer, what made the summer box office what it was what? Action movies. Action movies are what brought butts into theaters during the summer, and a lot of Hollywood studios forgot that, and they thought that people wanted to get out the sun and watch some Artur porn fest. No one wants to see that. Deadpool Wolverine is proof that nonstop action and superhero films are not exhausting or overdone. If you do them right, they will be there. But even the low budgetedest, worst action film brought people to theaters. That's a fact. People say, you know what? I need some action. I'll go see Aliens, Romulus. Hell, I'll even go see The Crow. Because I need
slow
to
down now.
Nobody did. Slow
down.
But The Crow did a lot better than Horizon.
Well, there's a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
And so now we don't even know if the rest of the Horizon movies are going to get finished. I know that he's filming more right now
for streaming.
I would love to see the story finished one way or the other, because I'll tell you this.
You and three people.
No. If you liked if you liked Lonesome Dove or How the West Was Won, you must see this.
Okay, four people.
Okay, Mark.
You get real obscure here.
Yeah, those are such obscure films.
Is it Waterworld set in the desert? What?
Your question is pointless because you have no desire for me to give you a genuine answer. You're just looking for something to mock, and I won't do it.
Got that right. Look, I don't have to mock it. It cost $100 million to make, and they only made like $34 million of it, and it bombed horrendously, killed any chance at sequels going into movie theaters. It's not my fault.
Don't you at least respect the nerve of an artist who takes a risk like that with his own money? Like Francis Ford Coppola's Megalopolis is coming out right now, and he financed that all himself.
Yeah, and I don't think I want to see that.
And that's going to be boring trash.
That is going to bomb.
That's going to bomb.
We said that Deadpool Wolverine was going to be a massive hit. We can get the audio if need be. Okay, I'm saying right now, Megalopolis is going to bomb horrendously, tragically, inevitably.
It might, because Deadpool and Wolverine and things like that are crowd pleasers, and these others are more adult movies that well, whatever.
I don't want to hear adult movies, dude. That is such a
so dismissive, right?
Condescending. We are not adults.
We can't appreciate this type of movie.
Well, it happens to be true. Listen to the way you two clowns were mocking Scorsese's last one.
Scorsese.
Oh, here we go. Oh, look at the
Killers
time.
of the Flower Planet. What was it called?
We're up against the clock.
KFI AM 640. We're live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Quentin Tarantino, I think he is a brilliant film director. He's just not my cup of tea. He's one of those, going back to the discussion of, you have to pick and choose as far as where the line is, who you would interview or who you want to talk to. He's not someone I'd probably want to interview because the way he does his movies and his use of the N-word is just something that really, really grates me. In fact, any movie that has that in it, I just can't get past that. But I can acknowledge that Quentin Tarantino is a massive talent. I'm trying to compartmentalize all this. The point of this is Quentin Tarantino sat down with Bill Maher for Bill Maher's podcast. And, of course, they were talking about movies. And for Quentin Tarantino, he thinks that he will never watch Toy Story 4. In fact, they're getting ready to make Toy Story 5. His reasoning is Toy Story 3, or I should say the trilogy, is one of the best ones that he's ever seen. And for them to do something in Toy Story 4 for him would ruin it. There's no more story to tell. Let me just play the audio for you. This is Quentin Tarantino with Bill Maher.
I am a big fan of the Toy Story trilogy. Third one is just magnificent. It's one of the best movies I've ever seen. And if you've seen the other two, then it's devastating. 3 years later or something, they did a fourth. And I have no desire to see it. You literally ended the story as perfect as you could. So, no, I don't care if it's good. I'm done. It can still be good, but I'm done.
I disagree with him. I understand what he's saying, but I disagree with him. I'll give you an example. I love the original Star Wars trilogy. Wouldn't say it was perfect, but I loved it. And when I love something like that, I always would like to see more from that world. And I can separate a trilogy from the next trilogy. Like if this is going to be Toy Story 4, 5, and 6, I would like to see that story. I'd like to visit that world again. Even with Alien. Talked about Alien Romulus. You had basically 4 legitimate Alien movies, not counting the Alien versus Predator. But it's a universe that I wanted to go back to, assuming that the story was right. I don't have those types of limitations that Quentin Tarantino does, but we're, some of us are purists. We all got our hangups. But I was curious. It's like, okay, well, is there a perfect movie trilogy out there? Did he find one? Has he seen one? How would he characterize the perfect movie trilogy? And he got there. And believe it or not, it's not one I would agree with.
I think there's only one trilogy that completely and utterly works to the nth degree, and that's Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More and The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. It's one director vision, Sergio Leone. It does what no other trilogy has ever been quite able to do. The first movie is terrific. The second movie is so great and takes the whole idea to such a bigger canvas that it obliterates the first one. Then the third one, Good and the Bad and the Ugly, does the same thing to the second one. Mad Max, Road Warrior, and Beyond Thunderdome doesn't dwarf Road Warrior.
Kind of agree, kind of disagree. I agree that when you have a trilogy with a single director, you have a unified vision. That usually pans out better than having 3 different directors for 3 movies in a trilogy. It didn't work with the second Star Wars trilogy. It doesn't work with subsequent Alien movies. It didn't work with the subsequent Predator movies or the Die Hard movies. Once you have different directors, more times than not, it feels disjointed because you're not going to have the same type of feeling or just a vision of the characters and also how you tell the story. What say you, Mark?
Well, I watched a good deal of that interview last night, and I don't agree with Tarantino on everything, but he knows enough that if I disagree with him, I think whatever he has to say is worth considering. And so when he made that point about the Dollars trilogy, I thought, I wouldn't have thought of that if somebody asked me what the best trilogy of all time was. But now that he puts that in my head, I'm not sure I can think of one that was better done.
Well, put it this way. I would... Godfather 3 was horrible.
Yes, it was. But, I can't defend that.
That was like, nope, the third one.
Yeah, but put it this way. I don't know if the three parts of the trilogy he's mentioned are individually good enough for me to say best trilogy.
It's kind of obscure in the year of our Lord 2024 to cite those 60s spaghetti westerns, but they're magnificent movies. I mean, the first two are more pulpy, and the third one is just a full-on epic. And if you haven't seen him, or if you haven't seen him in a while, they're worth revisiting. They're really good. And if you had any doubt that Clint Eastwood was one of the coolest men ever to walk the face of the earth, just watch those.
Yeah, I think I would want to sit down, scroll through IMDb, and really dig deep into my personal film history to see if I can find what I would think to be a better trilogy, because none of those movies to me are like top 10 best of lists. And I think there needs to be some great movies for it to be the greatest trilogy of all time. I get the point that he's trying to make as far as that cohesive through line through all the movies, and how the end movie doesn't dwarf the preceding movies. I get all that. I just think that there's probably another trilogy that I have not thought of at this moment, which I would rather submit.
I wonder what listeners think. I'd be curious, because there's got to be something that I haven't thought of. I think they made a good point about the Mad Max movies. The middle one, The Road Warrior, is easily in the top 10 action films of all time. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen that. First one, very promising. Third one, got a little too big, kind of crapped the bed a little bit.
Yeah, and look, first thing is, usually a great trilogy, the second movie has to somehow supplant or be better than the first movie. Empire Strikes Back, better than A New Hope. Fair to say?
Yeah, but then the third one with the Ewoks was terrible.
Right, that's my point. But I'm saying there has to be a growth and progression for it to be a great trilogy.
Yeah, no question. No question. I'm going to watch the rest of that interview tonight, but my tolerance for Bill Maher is really decreasing as I get older.
I think most people are just, I could tell you some stories.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Yeah, he's real good friends with my old boss, so,
I mean, we've just ensured that neither of us will ever get invited onto his show. But
no, I'm quite sure that's part of the reason why I've never been invited on. I'm positive.
Well, we weren't going to be anyway.
No, not at all. And it's okay. It really is okay.
No, he doesn't want people on there who are going to eat his lunch. He stacks that panel with people who are going to suck up to him.
Oh, it's just like the beginning of Rocky 3. Those are all, shot fighters past their prime. Those are handpicked.
Consider this a challenge, Bill.
Wait, you just said, you don't think that Rocky 1, 2, and 3 are in the running for the greatest trilogy of all time?
That's a great point. That's a great point.
I mean, think about that. Rocky.
That's a great
1, 2, 3.
Because there's no loss in quality by the time you get to 3. 3 is terrific.
It's the problem is 4 and 5.
Yeah, but if you just stick with Rocky 1, 2, 3, that is a pitch perfect trilogy.
I don't know if I can argue with that. I have to think about that during the commercial break.
He might be right, which I hate to admit.
It's later with Mo Kelly, KFI AM 640 live. Everywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
Last segment, we were talking about what Quentin Tarantino had to say about the best movie trilogy of all time as he saw it.
I think there's only one trilogy that completely and utterly works to the nth degree, and that's Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More and The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. It's a one director vision, Sergio Leone. It does what no other trilogy has ever been quite able to do. The first movie is terrific. The second movie is so great and takes the whole idea to such a bigger canvas that it obliterates the first one. Then the third one, Good and the Bad and the Ugly, does the same thing to the second one. Mad Max, Road Warrior, and Beyond Thunderdome doesn't dwarf Road Warrior.
Okay. So it got us thinking about any movie trilogy, because I thought the Clint Eastwood trilogy was great, but I don't know if any movie individually in that was fantastic. And I think you need to have fantastic movies to make up a trilogy.
I don't know. Those are kind of fighting words. The second one is really fantastic, and the third one is an epic in its own right.
All right. It's all subjective. I mean, you've been known to be wrong most of the time, so that's okay.
Wait, what?
Huh?
What?
Okay. But it got us thinking about movie trilogies. And the first one that came to mind, I said Godfather. It's like, no, because of the third movie. And Tawala, you came up with a great response. Rocky 1, 2, and 3. And it's hard because we know Rocky was Academy Award winning. Did it win Best Screenplay 1976, I believe?
Got to look it up.
Yeah, I know it was nominated. I know that for a fact. I want to think that it won. But, it's in good company. And I'm trying to think of any other worthy trilogy of consideration. Now, this may be heresy for some, but hear me out. Because we're talking about acting performances and everything. I say Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy is worthy of consideration.
I was going to say that too.
Yeah, but no, the first one was lacking. The first one was lacking. We are all in love with the second one. But if you go back and even try to rewatch the first one.
I do. I've watched Batman Begins a number of times.
It fails. It really does fail. It doesn't hold up.
Is it because of your hate for Liam Neeson or playing Ra's al Ghul?
No. It has nothing to do with that SOB at all. It is purely just for me rewatching that one. The story does not hold and it drags too much, and it really puts Batman in a bad light for who we know Batman is supposed to be. It's like, this is not really a Batman worthy of it. I like the Bruce Wayne, didn't like the Batman, and the villain was not really all that impressive. But when you get to Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker, we had never seen any villain of that caliber ever before. And then it did kick it up a notch, even though it dragged the Dark Knight Rises. That was a great villain. It was just way too thought out, and after when it got to the end, you're like, okay, let's either drop the bomb or whatever. It does not necessarily hold up. Rocky, from when you look at the progression, you look at the succession, you look at improving on the story, one through line, you put Rocky 1, 2, and 3 right next to each other, it plays like one seamless film. Nothing is off. It goes up. It just goes up. Rocky 1 was phenomenal. We were all shook by the fact he didn't win. Rocky 2, we felt vindicated because he did win, but Rocky 3 brought into question his ability and really put him in a real fight. We really thought that Sylvester Stallone was a real fighter going up against Clubber Lang. We was like, this is riveting, and it holds up through the test of times. We're talking a good 30, 40 years, and it's
40 years.
It's still one of the best trilogies ever done. And I get, look, one of my personal favorites is the Back to the Future trilogy, only because of how the third one ended. Maybe not the entire film, but the way it ended. Yeah. But that's just me. But I'm talking a universal. You cannot point anything wrong with them. You can't pick apart Rocky 1, 2, 3. No.
Look, I would rather have Rocky 1, 2, 3. I mean, I can't argue against that. And there are a lot of trilogies where they have one or two good movies. Like, for example, The Matrix. I think that could have been an all-time great trilogy, but they messed up the second movie so badly.
Yeah.
And I think it was more of a rush because they filmed 2 and 3, Reloaded and what was the third one called?
I don't know.
Revolution.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Why not? And they did them back to back, and it felt like one long movie, and it didn't seem like there were two distinct movies with storylines and a 3-act progression, because the second movie ended so damn abruptly, like mid-story. It wasn't like Empire Strikes Back.
No.
You didn't have any type of climactic moment. It just said like, and now we go to commercial. We'll see you in 3 years. It just felt very abrupt. But that could have been... It didn't turn out that. So I can't really disagree completely with what Quentin Tarantino said, but I'm not so sure that I would go with Rocky before
I would
Clint
think
Eastwood.
if you put Rocky up against the Clint Eastwood films, you would walk away with a more fulfilled film going experience. Like if whatchamacallit films, what's the name of that company that does all those trilogies and things they bring up? Fathom Films. If Fathom Films did 2 trilogy screenings and they did The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly versus Rocky would be the winner.
All right. What about Penitentiary 1, 2, and 3?
That's some good storytelling. That's some good storytelling.
Come on now. You can't dismiss it out of hand. Leon Isaac Kennedy, Jane Kennedy.
So it was very, those were rough to watch. Those were rough, man.
Those are cinematic pieces of gold.
Man.
Now, I can't really find any other comparable trilogy, just trying to think about one where each movie of the trilogy is strong in its own right.
Yeah.
You guys don't watch those Hobbit movies, do you?
No, I did, and I thought there was Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. They were not good movies to me.
I mean,
not at all.
They're not my cup of tea, but people seem to like them.
They do. People like a lot of walking
and talking.
People like a lot of talking. People like going on that walking, talking adventure and hearing all that gibberish.
I liked the animated versions better than actual live movies.
Oh, the Ralph Bakshi one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no, the live action, I mean, oof,
Yeah.
No. People also like taking Ambien. So, I mean,
right. People are furries out there. They're people into a lot of stuff, okay? It doesn't mean that it's good.
All right. Hear me out. What about the Blade trilogy?
No.
The third one
was garbage.
The third one
with Drake
horribly.
No, it was horrible.
I didn't mind the third one.
That one's just,
you're wrong.
It was the weakest of the 3, but it wasn't as bad as everyone says.
But it wasn't a good movie in its own right. And I think you are casting the Blade trilogy overall, the feeling for it. But that third movie was garbage.
I mean, for me, you could throw in the Captain America trilogy, First Avenger, Winter Soldier, and Civil War.
Right.
And that's a solid trilogy, but not enough people were feeling the first one. Even though the first one set it off, the first one was a fun adventure, but it was so paint by numbers compared to The Rocketeer. But yeah, by itself, not enough people like that. But of course, everyone will swear by Winter Soldier, and Civil War is infallible. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't usually think of those as a trilogy so much as part of the big Marvel phases that they were involved in. But I think The Winter Soldier is easily Marvel's high point.
The best, without a doubt.
You're listening to Later with Mo Kelly on demand from KFI AM 640.
And before we get out of here, I'm still racking my brain, Mark. I'm still racking my brain. I'm not going to let it go. I think there's some trilogy that we're overlooking somewhere that is right in front of us. And I think it's like, no, it's not Chronicles of Narnia. It's not Lord of the Rings. I just feel like there's one that we're just missing that's really obvious. And it's not a Marvel trilogy. I don't think it's anything like that.
No, my mind goes back to like Hammer films, like the Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing stuff.
Right.
I really can't find fault with Tuwala bringing up Rocky. Those first 3 were really solid.
Yeah, and maybe you can say, well, a trilogy is only 3 movies. And to Quentin Tarantino's point, he was saying about Toy Story 4, if you've already told that complete story, what more story is there to tell? And in a way, you're taking away from the original trilogy if you don't leave it alone. I think there is something to be said for that. But I am more of the opinion that, look, if I love the universe, I will keep going back to it. And that's part of the reason why you saw a Rocky 4, you saw a Rocky 5, then you see the Creed franchise, because people do love that universe. They love those characters. I don't know if you can say that about a lot of trilogies.
No. And we go, I'm thinking about Star Trek and all the series. God, I hate the word franchise when it comes to movies. It's like, what kind of insider, producer, business mogul do you think you are talking about movie franchises? But I love the Star Trek series. Those first half a dozen of those were good. The first half a dozen James Bond movies were all you need.
Yeah, but see, James Bond, that to me is a franchise. It's not, you can't call those a trilogy.
No, you're right.
There's no story arc over three.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
There's almost no connective tissue in any of them until you get to the Daniel Craig ones.
Yeah.
All right, hear me out. Will Deadpool be in the conversation 10 years from now?
What do you mean?
I think so.
Trilogy.
Yeah, I think so. You know what? Absolutely, because Deadpool 1 was great. Deadpool 2 was phenomenal, and Deadpool 3 was out of control.
And I know recency bias, but still, the first two movies are pretty damn strong.
Yeah.
Ton of fun.
Like you can watch the first two over and over and over for all types of different reasons, and it stands. It is a great comedy, a great action movie. And when you watch them as a whole, you see that there is actually some real heart and some substance to the character that you may not have noticed at first, but you go back and you say, man, they've really been telling a story about this character's development as a human being, as an individual across 3 films, and very bold, willing to take risks that a lot of others weren't.
But it won't get the critical acclaim. It won't get the type of credit that other movies will, because it is still, quote unquote, a superhero movie. There probably won't be any Oscars coming out in the top 4 categories for Deadpool, even though I can appreciate the subtleties that you talked about. You know, Ryan Reynolds is not going to be up for Best Actor, but in these other trilogies, you've had that one standout performance, at least the industry recognized. That would be my only drawback. But me personally, I would put it in the conversation. Recency bias, yes, but I'd still put it in the conversation.
Totally legit. They're really fun movies, and the first two, it hasn't been that long, but they've aged great. You could sit down and watch them anytime. Now, consider this. I'm not going to put this forward as an all-time great trilogy, but the 3 first Exorcist movies would make a good weekend marathon, even given the fact that the second one is just nuts.
Oh, but see, the second one to me was so bad that would disqualify it for me.
It is a really iffy, absolutely insane movie from John Borman, who is a great, great director. And it's worth seeing. Even if you decide that you hate it after you see it, there's some stuff in it that's worth consideration.
But that does go back to the idea of a single director, single vision continuity.
Oh, yeah, because William Friedkin did the first one, Borman did the second one, and then the author, William Peter Blatty, did the third one, and the third one is great. If you've never seen the third one, you must see it.
I don't know.
Exorcist 3, you're gonna get up in my grill about Exorcist 3?
I would rather see Damien Ullman 1, 2, and 3 before Exorcist 1, 2, and 3. I'm being serious.
But there's room for both. Our Lord and Savior Satan says there's room for both.
Okay, before you go to hell, we're going to end the show right now. KFI AM 640 live everywhere in the iHeartRadio app.
Untangling the mess until it makes sense.
KFI
And KOST HD2.
Los Angeles, Orange County.
Live everywhere on the iHeartRadio.